heard live here, the verdict coming down from the grand jury in Ferguson, Missouri. The officer, Darren Wilson, no probable cause to indict this officer. It turns out he was acting within his bounds of doing his duty. Let's go over this with somebody who knows the law inside and out. Brian Bouffard, a good pal of mine. He's earned his law degree at Duke University. He is a former Navy JAG officer, practices law right here in Fort Worth, Texas. He's criminal and military defense counsel. He travels all over the globe representing service members facing court-martial. Mr. Bouffard, welcome back to WBAP. Brian, are you there, sir?
Can you hear me?
I've got you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
No problem. Look, first off, you saw the ruling come down. What's your first reaction?
Well, yeah, and I'm actually sitting here watching it right now, and honestly, my reaction is hoping that violence doesn't take place. And so far there have been some bottles thrown, but it doesn't seem to be the surge that I think we were all fearing, at least at this point.
Yeah, it's true. As you're sitting here talking, I'm looking over my shoulder at the television screen. It seems that there are just some people being a little loud, a little rowdy, that have the camera's attention. But for the most part, so far, and let's find some wood, to knock on. It's going to stay that way. I was captivated, and it was kind of surreal. I'm watching this. This is a prosecutor, right? Who was reading the ruling, and he was going through such detail. Does every grand jury go through that amount of specificity, or was this a special case?
No, this is a very special case, and really the way to look at it is a typical grand jury presentation. A prosecutor will walk in with 20 or 25 cases, and they'll all be done in about 2 hours. So this is a very unique situation, but really, when you look at the media exposure that this has all had, I think it's a really good idea for them to have done exactly what they did. Take as much time as you want, give them every stitch of evidence, and let them make that call, and that's what they've done here.
Were you as struck as I was that he made careful to point out how the media jumped to conclusions, how a lot of the witnesses gave false testimony that wasn't in line with the physical evidence, and how he stressed that those grand jurors were the only ones to see all the evidence, and that everybody else out here, yours truly included, just going off of either what they're predisposed to believe or incomplete evidence.
Right. Everybody has their own agenda, but it's, you hope that the system works exactly like it has appeared to work in this case, and that is the people who are charged with making this call, they had everything that they needed in order to make the right call. I mean, people can agree with it, disagree with it, but at the end of the day, they can truthfully say, well, you can disagree all you want, but we saw things that you don't know about, and that's pretty powerful. You gotta credit that.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that it really didn't matter, at least to some of these protesters out there, in particular those with like you said, an agenda. Didn't really matter what the facts were. It's just how you could gin up a lot of animosity and a lot of inflamed passions. I'm looking at the pictures right now and watching Fox News coverage, and you see a little group of police officers standing in front. I'm assuming down by the courthouse where the no indictment announcement was being made by the prosecutor.
Correct.
And you see this mob of people and one barricade and just a little itty bitty group of police officers that are dwarfed by this crowd, and it's just that's a fuse you hope doesn't get lit, right?
Exactly, and again, right now, I mean, it's been 10 minutes easily since they have announced this, and at least I would think that if something was going to kick off, it would have already kicked off, and we're not really seeing that at this point.
On the legal side, what is the future for, in your view, for Officer Darren Wilson? Here's a guy, I mean, I know he's left the area already. He's gone.
Yeah, he's left the area, and I had heard some information from some media reports earlier that he was in talks to actually resign, and I mean, that's that's his call. But based on, from a legal perspective, based on what has happened now, he should be able to walk right back on his job tomorrow. And if they try to fight it, or if they try to fire him and he wants to fight back, I'm sure the police union will have his back on that. But realistically, I think he knows, realistically, he's probably done in that town.
Yeah, in that town. What do you think about his career as far as law enforcement in general? Because of this and because of the tar and feathering this guy took, as it turns out, unjustly, unfairly by a lot of the folks in the left-wing press, what do you actually see that any police force would actually take a chance and hire him and take a chance on all that negative publicity being brought by the race hustlers in this country?
Well, possibly, but again, I mean, you have to look at this as he really has been completely exonerated, and the reason for that is that the grand jury was looking at a standard of proof that is so far below beyond a reasonable doubt. They were just tasked with determining whether or not there's some probable cause that something happened and that that a crime was committed and that he committed this crime. And they said no. So what that means is that there's not even a below 50% level of evidence saying that he did anything wrong. So, if I'm a police chief and I'm worried about hiring, any officer who's been involved in something like this, my concern would be, well, is this person going to be impeachable on the stand, or can they testify and do their job? And right now, this officer seems to be in a position where he can, continue to do his job and do it properly and not be impeached by anything that's gone on here.
Brian Bouffard, my guest right now. He earned his law degree at Duke University, former Navy JAG officer. Just briefly, would you walk the folks through the grand jury process? I mean, it's not like a traditional jury where you're sequestered, is it? I mean, do these jurors have
Correct.
these jurors get to live out their lives, but they do get to evaluate this evidence that nobody else gets to see, right?
That's absolutely right. They were not sequestered. A grand jury is very different than a trial jury is. A grand jury sits and hears many cases over a term of usually about 3 or 4 months, and that's what they do. Their job is to take every case in which the government says we want to charge somebody with a felony, and they look at the evidence and hopefully dispassionately and hopefully objectively, and determine, all right, well, here there's probable cause, so we're going to indict. Okay, here there's no probable cause, we're not going to indict. It's an important check in the system, and when it's done properly, it's very important. Now, in a lot of cases, in a lot of typical cases, it is really nothing more than a rubber stamp. But in this case, it was clear, it seems clear to me at least, that they really used the grand jury for its correct purpose. And you can agree or disagree with the result, but I think what we're seeing here is a result that was reached through the proper procedure.
All right, Brian Bouffard, he is a former Navy JAG officer. Brian, if they want to get in touch with you, what website can they go to look you up to see what it is that you do?
Absolutely. My website is bouffardlaw.com. That's BOUFFARDLAW. And that's my website for my criminal defense practice here in Texas. I also have a military defense practice at jagdefender.com.
Excellent. JAGdefender.com. Brian Bouffard, thanks for very much for carving out time here on the Big VAP with the Chris Crock Show with me, Chris Salcedo.